Hi, and welcome to the Grieving with God podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Byington. I am so excited for this week's episode. I have Brandi Linn with me this week, who is the host of the Bossy Big Sis podcast. This is a great podcast for anyone who has a question about anything, wants to talk about anything. If you have a question about it, she has probably covered it. This is a really great podcast, and it comes from a Christian foundation. So if you like what you hear on today's episode with Brandi Linn, head over to her podcast, Bossy Big Sis. You can find it anywhere you get your podcast. And I'm so excited to talk to Brandi today as we talk about the loss of her grandmother. Some of us have lost grandparents early on. Some of us maybe still have our grandparents alive. But sometimes for us, losing a grandparent is our very first meaningful encounter with grief. And sometimes it is a grief that is minimized by other people. Oh, you just lost your grandparent. You're okay. When sometimes the grandparent is a meaningful relationship in our lives. And so we talk with Brandi about what it was like for her to lose her grandmother and what it meant to grieve her. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Also, if you have not yet subscribed to our podcast or our YouTube channel, go ahead and do that now. Turn on your notifications so you know every time that an episode is released. Also, we are hosting our first virtual retreat in July 12th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a short retreat. And if you can't make it for that time, or you can only come late, or you're going to have to leave early, still sign up. It is free. And at the end of our retreat, we will be sending a link to the recording of the retreat. So even if you miss it, you will be able to watch it. But we can't send you the link if you don't sign up. The link will be in the show notes. I hope you enjoy this episode with Brandi Linn. Hi, and welcome to the Grieving with God podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Byington, and I'm so excited to share this week's episode with you as we talk with Brandi Linn. Now, Brandi and I just met. Usually I interview people, and you're probably like, oh, she only interviews people she knows. No, I am interviewing someone who I just met, and I'm so excited to talk to her today about experiences that she has had with grief, feelings of guilt, and is there a right or a wrong way to grieve? And so, Brandi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So wait, am I the first stranger guest that you have had on?
Let me think. Yes.
I feel honored. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with your audience.
Yes, I'm very excited too. So we talk about grief here on the Grieving with God podcast, and we talk about all different kinds of grief. And so sometimes grief is not in those great big relationships like husband, wife, or things like that. But sometimes it is in those very meaningful other relationships we have, like grandparents. And so I did want to talk to you. I wanted to ask you, first of all, before you talk about that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Brandi, and what you do?
Sure. So I'm also a podcast host. Bossy Big Sis is my podcast. I'm a business coach. I primarily coach small business owners. I was a boutique owner for 6 years. And so I really use the skills and strategies from that to be able to help my clients now. And I'm a mom, and I've got 2 teenagers, and we're busy and active and, just living our lives. So.
Yes. Yeah. I have 2 teenagers as well, and it is always busy at our house. So yes.
Always busy. Yes.
Always. So Brandi, today I asked you to come on the show today because we'd like to talk to you about was your grandmother that you lost?
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your grandmother and the kind of relationship you had with her?
Yeah. So my parents had me when they were really young. My parents were in high school when they had me. And the blessing of that, I think, is that I'm 42 years old and just now lost my grandparent. And I feel like that's very special and a huge blessing. I mean, my boys are 14, almost 15, and 17. And that was their great grandma. And to be able to spend so many years with their great grandma, I don't take for granted. She was 86 years old when she died just this past January, and her memorial service went for hours and was packed the whole time, which is
Oh,
so rare
wow.
for
What
someone
a
of that
testimony.
age. But she
Yes.
just impacted so many people, and it's really because she loved people the way that Jesus loved people. Like, she was truly the most Christ-like human that I know, and so incredibly active. In fact, we had just been on a cruise together a few months before she passed away. Very
Wow.
healthy, very active. We thought she would outlast all of us. I thought she would end up in the Guinness Book of World Records for like
Oh,
living
wow.
the
Yeah.
longest. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, right.
she lived such a full, vibrant life. And we were just close always. And she was so good at relationships. And even though she had 25 grandkids and great grandkids, she
Wow.
was close to every single one. And I just think
Oh,
that's
wow.
special and a
That
real
is.
skill, actually, to be able to be
Yeah.
so great at relationships. So, yeah, she was
Oh, yes.
a big part of my life.
They are very
Yeah,
special, and especially to have such a testimony at her funeral with all those people. I mean, that what a testimony of the life that she led.
so many people getting up to speak about her and having
Mm-hmm.
just amazing stories about her. And just that was such a blessing to us as a family, too.
That's incredible. So, can you tell me what do you remember most vividly about the time she passed away? Um, Maybe some memories that you have of the moment or the moments leading up to her passing.
Mhm. Death is always hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the blessing of her passing is that we were together in October for a big family cruise. She was as healthy as could be. And within weeks, she was diagnosed with a really aggressive form of leukemia.
Oh, wow.
And then less than 2 months after that diagnosis, she passed away.
Oh, wow.
What was really special and hard is that we were given that time together to say the things.
Yeah.
Like, I got to tell her everything that you would want to say to somebody.
Yep.
And she got to do that too with the whole family.
Yeah.
And that was so special. She also, as I think about grief more and more and having just walked through this, I mean, it's still really fresh for
Yeah,
me.
it is.
Just a couple of months ago, but I think one of the biggest blessings that we can give to our family members is the peace of knowing that we're with Jesus.
Yes.
And she literally, my sisters and I went in on Christmas Day. She was in the hospital. And I'm the oldest. I was trying to have it together, be cool, calm, collected.
Yes.
And my sisters were coming unglued. And she's like, girls, and she had all sons. She's like, girls, pull yourselves together. I had all boys. I didn't have to deal with all this crying. And she's like, I'm not sad because I've lived a blessed life.
Oh,
and I know that I'm going to be with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I be sad about?
Oh, wow.
And that was so profound to me and remains so profound to me because that's truly how we should look at death.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just like really hard to,
Yes.
but it was such a lesson, and like the peace that I'm able to have still when the grief feels heavy. Yeah. I think about that, her happiness, and that she's truly, I mean, she's dancing in heaven. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And so I try to prioritize the happiness that I want to have for her over my sadness.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I have a phrase that I actually picked up from our pastors when they did a series on death. And they said, death is temporary. Life is what is eternal. And I have to think of that when the sadness comes, when you're, oh, this person who I loved here on earth is no longer here, but the doorway of death, that is what God made temporary. And it is life with him that we're going to have, and we'll be able to see them. And that is a very important way of looking at death. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, through her, from the time she was diagnosed until she passed, there was really only one time that I even saw her cry. And I'm not saying crying is a weakness or anything like that. It's just that her faith was so deeply rooted. And the only time she cried was when she was going to be admitted to the hospital and she didn't want to be. And that was more just like frustration of, she had led a very active social life. So it was just very inconvenient for her to have a leukemia diagnosis.
Oh, I love that.
And so I try to think about that too, because I'm like, she just lived so well.
Yes.
She just fully lived life. And I love that about her.
Oh, yeah. She sounds like a lovely woman to have known. So can you share a little bit about what the early days of grieving looked like for you?
Yeah. I feel like the whole time that she had the diagnosis and was being treated it was a lot of a lot of riding a roller coaster, and a lot of times where you're on a mountaintop and you're feeling like, okay, everything's looking really good. There's hope. And then you hit a valley because it's like something didn't work well and now she's really sick again. And so I really feel like that there was a lot of grieving that happened in the in-between.
Yes.
And I really feel like that I actually grieved harder in some of the in-between, not because I didn't have faith in God. Right. It's that this is a woman who I don't want to see her with a hangnail. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So to see her suffering or in pain or uncomfortable, that was a layer of grief. I did not like seeing her that way. And so there were times when I remember it may not seem like it in this episode, but I'm a very in control of my emotions person. Yeah. I thought that I was fine. And then one night I just started sobbing, crying. And this was while she was still alive.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sobbing, crying, having an actual panic attack to where I'm like, can't hardly breathe. And I'm face down on the floor of my bathroom. And just the grief was so overwhelming and so heavy during that period.
Yeah.
Wow. But I feel like that it was it's almost like that God was preparing me for what was to come. And I actually am thankful for that heavy grief during that season. Or that just moment of time, because I do feel like you've got to get it out. Like you can't hold it in. It's going to make you sick. It's going to make you anxious. It's going to make you bitter. Yeah. And so I think it was really healthy for me to get that out so that then I could go on with tomorrow. And because life is still happening. Like even though I'm grieving this and she's got this diagnosis and the world is still spinning. And I've still got kids to take care of, and I've still got businesses, and I've still got clients, and everything is still going. And so I feel like it was really healthy for me to experience that. I mean, it was so irrational in some ways. My dogs came up to, so I was crying. Yes. And my husbands were like, "Oh, the dogs are like loving on you. They know that you need our other dog had just died a couple of months prior to that. And these dogs were new adopted dogs. And I'm like, but they're not Molly. So then I'm like having unglued about that. And my husband's just doesn't know what to say. Patting me and loving me. It all just needed to come out.
It did. Yes. Yeah.
So that I could go on with tomorrow. And then there would be moments where she lived an hour and a half away from me. And so I would be at the hospital visiting her. And for the full hour and a half ride home, I would just cry. Yeah. And it's like that needed to happen so that when I got home, I could put on my mom hat and do life because it was still happening. Yeah. And so that was what the early days of grief through the diagnosis looked like. I think that after she passed, I've just realized this. I think I was in denial a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that's because also I'm very much like okay, like I'm going to do this until this day and then this until this day. And then there would be people telling me, grief is really, it's going to be a process and next Christmas is going to be awful. And I would be like, no, don't speak that over me. It's not. I'm not going to do it that way. Yeah. And I'm going to grieve for this many days and then that's going to be over. And then I'm going to go on and live life. And
yes.
And it turns out that's not how it works.
I was going to ask, have you found that to be true?
No, it has not been true. But I would be like, don't speak over me how I'm going to feel.
Right. Well,
that's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So how has it been then? And how has your grief been different from what you expected? And how has your grief maybe even been different from those around you?
I guess I thought that I would have more control of it. Mm-hmm. And you just really don't have control over when you're going to feel sad.
Right.
And we went on a cruise again for spring break, and we were on the exact same ship that she was on with us back in October. And in fact, in my office, I've got the picture that was at her funeral was taken on that cruise ship. I took that picture.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just right across. It's hanging in my office now. And so being on the cruise ship and walking past that spot where that picture was taken and just being like, how I just never would have imagined that we're just having this little impromptu photo shoot for funsies.
Yeah.
That would be the picture that would be at her funeral. And
right.
So just being back on that ship and like crossing where we took the picture was like overwhelming. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Oh, man.
And then in the early days, there were days when I would just be happy. Yeah. Like sad still, but also like happy. Like I was going about my day and like doing my things, and my job is largely on social media. And other family members, like I would see their social media posts, or I would get a text message and they would be struggling really hard that day. And I would be like having a good day. And then there would come the moments of like, why am I having a good day? Yeah. Like I should be grieving the way that person is grieving today.
Yes. Right.
Or feelings like when I would feel really sad, like why am I feeling this way? I should be feeling this way. And so I decided very early on, and this is my first experience with grief as an adult, honestly. Right. But I decided very early on that I'm just going to feel how I feel. And that there are going to be days when I'm really sad, and I'm just going to let myself feel really sad. Yeah. And there are going to be moments when I feel happy. And so I'm going to just let myself feel happy on that day. Yeah. And I think that's a grace that I needed to give myself. Yes. To be able to feel what I feel and process what I need to process, because it is very unpredictable. Yes. And I think that when we try to tell ourselves that it has to look a certain way, we're not allowing ourselves to really feel the way that we need to feel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So did this difference of feelings, I'm going to be happy today, I'm not going to, did that ever bring up any kind of feelings of guilt, or feeling like maybe you should be performing for someone to feel like, so they know that, yes, I am still grieving? Like, did you realize that maybe your grief looked different from what people expected? How, like, can you share a little bit about that?
Like a large part of my business is social media. I have to show up on social media every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And I felt guilty about doing that because my family members, like maybe they weren't showing up on social media. They didn't feel like talking to people in their stories on Instagram or whatever. And I had to kind of like reconcile that with myself and be like, okay, he's not on social media, but he is at work today. And so me being on social media is me being at work today.
Right.
And I wasn't putting on a mask and acting as if nothing had happened. Like I would still talk about what I was going through, but just being on social media made me feel so guilty until which was something I was putting on myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that anybody else was doing to me.
Yeah.
It's just the expectation that I was placing on myself. And I just had to remind myself, like, everybody else is at work today.
Yeah.
This is just me being at work today.
Yeah.
And so that's how I was able to kind of like shut down those feelings of guilt that I would start feeling.
Did anyone ever come to you and say, hey, your grief is not looking the way it should, or maybe you should be sadder, or maybe you should be doing something different?
No, I did not experience that, but I did experience people saying things to other family members about how they should be feeling.
Yes.
And maybe not allowing someone to feel really mad.
Yeah.
And to feel really confused and to feel really angry. And I think it's natural for people to want to have a solution. And so I would try to intervene on those conversations and just say, like, hey, it's okay if you're mad today.
Yeah.
Like, God can handle it.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had days where I feel like that too. And that's something that I've tried to speak into other family members is just to let them know that, like, however you're feeling is okay.
Yeah. And I think we also have
to,
and I think we have to understand too about grief is that it is contrary to what we've heard. There are stages of grief, and we're going to go through denial and acceptance and all these things. It is not just something I have to get over. It's not a hill I have to climb and be done with. When you start experiencing grief, especially big events that are grief, it becomes a companion. And so there isn't a right or wrong way to grieve. And you might have been really, really sad before she died, but kind of resolved and maybe grateful and joyous at the funeral because you recognize the life she lived. Or maybe, you know, a couple of months later, you're going to feel really sad. And then maybe you're just going to be, wow, she's such an amazing person. I'm so glad she's, but she's like the, like you said earlier, the roller coaster of emotions, all of that is normal. And all of that is part of walking with grief, because it's not necessarily, like I said, a mountain to climb. It's just something that's going to be there, and it will manifest as it wants.
And, you know, there are family members who are grieving differently. Easter was just this past weekend, and there are family members who struggle to even be at family events right now.
Right.
I don't love that. That's not my choice for them. That's not how I actually feel better when I'm around, like, all of the family. Yeah. It like brings me some peace, but I recognize that that's not where that person's at and what they're feeling right now. Right. So I'm not going to say, like, tell them or dictate to them how they should be feeling. That's, like, prideful of me to do that. Like, I'm not the Holy Spirit, so I can't, it's not my responsibility to be like, to manage their emotions or even their, like, what they're hearing from God.
Yeah, right.
At that moment.
Right. And they might be in a different walk with God, in a different place, and he's doing something in their life that he's done something different in your life. And and it is important for us to recognize, hey, we all grieve differently, and it's going to look different for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How did your faith play a role in the way you navigated your grief, either in helpful or challenging ways?
My faith in the Lord is absolute. And so while I may not agree right now with his decision to take her home,
right,
that doesn't mean that I don't trust him and that I don't love him and that he's not still good. Right? Like, I don't want to praise the Lord only when I'm on a mountaintop getting what I want.
Right. Yes.
And that is just unwavering for me and absolute for me. And that has given me comfort And also, as I had said, the biggest gift that she left for all of us as family members or people who love her is the peace of knowing that she's with Jesus.
Yeah. Yes.
And so, like, if she's sitting on her deathbed telling me that she's not going to be sad because she's lived a blessed life, and what is there to be sad about when she's going to be with Jesus? Mm-hmm. If that's what she's speaking out and saying as she's sitting on her deathbed,
yeah,
how can I not like also align myself with that? Right. And so that for me, I don't know how people walk through things like this without the Lord.
Right. You're right. And there is such hopelessness that I see for some people who are trying to navigate this deep sorrow, deep grief, and not have that anchor, you know, that understanding that this is not all there is, that there is life after death, and that is with the Lord. And mm-hmm. yeah.
I'm just thinking mm-hmm. about this, and this just occurred to me. I don't know what's normal, but I don't think this is probably normal. I feel like that I sort of threw myself into the grief pretty heavy too. It's like I really wanted to feel it very hard and get so much out so that I could move forward. Yeah. And so every morning, like during the diagnosis and even, you know, after she passed and even still really like my time in the shower, I would just like turn on worship music, and I couldn't always worship, but I would intentionally pick sad worship songs like that I knew would make me cry. Yes. Like I have a playlist of songs that like, I know these ones are going to just send me, and that's what I need to like feel it pretty heavy while I'm in the shower so that then I can like regroup and go on with my day because the day's still going on. And that's still something that if I'm feeling even a little bit of sadness, because I have her like the funeral playlist.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'll like play that in the shower just to like kind of like make myself feel it pretty heavy. Yeah. And I know that sounds weird, but like it really helps me.
Yeah,
just to feel it. Like I want to cry about it. I want to like get it all out. And
there is something to having a cathartic release.
Yeah.
So were there any besides in the shower, spiritual practices or scriptures or prayers that might have helped you or guided you or were part of your daily routine?
You know, the scripture that tells us that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted is something that I lean into myself and that I speak over family members. And it's just simple. Like, and I just remind myself, I'll just remind myself throughout the day, like the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. And it's like, I can just feel his presence. It's not an elaborate prayer. It's not the longest scripture. It's just short and sweet. And I take peace and comfort in that. And I just feel his presence like every time that I remind myself of that. I'm really big on taking our thoughts captive.
Yeah.
And I think that the enemy would love to overwhelm us with grief and make the grief, then we could start to doubt the goodness of God. We could start to doubt, like, does God really care about you? Like, if he cared about you, you know what I mean? Like those things. And so I'm just really big at speaking out truth. So that my ears can hear it, because also our brains seek to prove us right. Like our brains look for evidence to prove us right. And so when I'm saying like, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, my ears are hearing that. And now I'm looking for evidence to see that like God is near.
Yes.
And so that's something that I just continue to be so intentional about.
Yeah. So something so simple, and it like we don't have to memorize whole books of the Bible to understand, you know, God's love for us or to feel his comfort and peace. That's so good that just a simple phrase is the comforting piece that you needed at that moment. So were there any clear moments that you saw that God was with you, that he was grieving with you and not just waiting for you to like, oh, I just can't wait till she's over this stage of life and then I can do something with her, like that's not how God is. God doesn't abandon us. We know this, but we're looking for, in our lives, where is it that he is showing himself to us, especially in those moments of grief? So where did God show up for you?
I mean, through the whole thing, really, just through all of it, from the time of the diagnosis, like I said, just having the time with her.
Yeah.
That was precious. Not everybody gets that. Like some people died tragically, suddenly. And I'm grateful that I had that time with her. So I felt like that was a gift from God.
Yeah.
I'll share a funny story. It's not funny. It's dark. Oh, no. It's dark. And sometimes you either laugh or cry, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's both at the same time. My one of my sisters is a hairstylist, and my nanny, who was my grandma, when we would be on vacations or she would be at our house or on a girls trip or anything, it was always like wanting us to, because like I've got nails, my sisters always have their nails done, hair done, all the things. And so she would always want us to put nails on her or do her nails or her hair or just all the things, pick out her outfits. And so my middle sister was like, guys, we have to get Nanny ready for the viewing. And me and my youngest sister, like, I'm glad God told you that. God has not told me that I need to do this.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I didn't know if I would be able to. And I prayed about it. And my other sister prayed about it. And we decided to go ahead and to do that.
Wow.
And while she was still living, but we knew she had a day or a couple of days, we left and went to the mall in the town that she lived in, which is where we all grew up. And we went to the JCPenney's, which is where she shopped. It's the only one still around in the United States.
Right.
And we found the perfect outfit for her. And I'm crying the whole way through this story. Yes. Just picking, can't even believe that we're in here picking out the outfit that she's going to wear at her funeral, which I didn't realize not everybody does that. I had so many people on my podcast and my podcast community say why'd you get a new outfit? Why didn't you use something she already had? And I'm like, you don't know my family. We don't wear the same thing twice. We need a new outfit for everything.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Including your funeral. And so we're at JCPenney's and we pick out the perfect outfit and we get to the counter and the woman, we were pulled together. We had pulled ourselves together and the woman just started ministering to us, the cashier.
Oh, wow.
And it just was the sweetest. I mean, she was being so kind before she knew anything and so thoughtful and just full of grace.
Oh my, wow.
And my middle sister was like, you don't know this, but we're picking this out for our grandma who she's on hospice right now, blah, blah, blah. And that woman told us about how a loss that she had experienced and came around the counter and hugged us. And it just was another feeling of just the goodness of God, that he cared enough about us even to give us a cashier that just was so loving and kind and all of that. So it was in those very small things. And then when we went to actually do her hair and do her makeup and do her nails after she had passed away, the Lord was with us through that, because I don't know how we were able to do that.
Right.
And I think everybody wants their loved one to look amazing.
Yeah.
At that time. But I mean, my sister's a hairstylist. I owned a boutique. We care a lot about that. And
yes,
she looked amazing.
That's awesome.
Incredible. It's she looked younger. She already looked so much younger than her age.
Oh, wow.
But she just when we went in that day, I was nervous because it was a full week later, and I was like picturing that she was going to look horrible and that would be sort of like just traumatic for us to see.
Right.
And she looked incredible to the point that we were like, did you guys already put some makeup on her? And they're like, oh no, we haven't done any. And we're like,
oh,
how does she look so great? And it just
wow,
felt like such a blessing because I didn't want to be traumatized by seeing her so dead,
right,
laying there. I don't know how else to say it, but like that felt like it was going to be very traumatic. And she looked amazing. It's like she glowed. She was radiant. And that was like, we knew like God's hands were on us and on her that day.
Oh, that is incredible.
Which was really special.
And what a great example of God grieving with us is right there in the cashier, and having somebody who has gone through a grieving process and knew what you guys needed to hear, came and gave you a hug. Like that is such a God moment right there to show that he is compassionate.
It was so special.
And we are not insignificant to him, and our grief is not insignificant to him. Oh, that is a beautiful
and
part.
He cares about even the small details.
Yes.
Like he cares.
Yes.
He cares that we had her nails on her perfectly.
Yes.
He knew that was important to us and that it would be important to her. And it just was something that I'm so glad that we did together. And it felt like, I know it's not something everybody would want to do or feel equipped to do. But my only regret through all of this, and this probably sounds so morbid too, but I wish that we would have recorded us together doing it, not to ever share with anybody, but just to have.
Yes.
We laughed, we cried, we laughed again, we cried again. I mean, the whole experience was just like, it's not just that it felt like the presence of the Lord was there, but it's exactly how it would have been if she was still alive.
Oh, that's
she would
beautiful.
have been giggling and then crying and then giggling again. And so it was very precious.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. So
in the most morbid
way. Right. It's true. So as you're going through this grieving process, have you had to deal with or battle, or have you encountered having to deal with other people's expectations about grief and reactions? Someone maybe trying to fix your grieving process, or maybe someone who was afraid of grief, that it didn't look big enough or deep enough. Did you have to navigate any of that?
You know what I had to navigate is there were certain people who didn't reach out. And that felt like I can't even express the feelings that I still probably have around that. That just, and it's like, I observe people. I like read books on emotional, like if I'm reading for fun, it's on like emotional intelligence or something like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like that I'm a very growth-minded, self-aware person. And so I've tried to wrap my head around that. Like, why would that person have not reached out? And what I've had to conclude is that for many people, it's just uncomfortable. I think people don't know what to say. And so I've had to make the decision to not have the expectations on how I think other people should console me in my grief.
Oh, yes.
If that makes sense. Because I don't think it's fair for me I don't want people to expect me to grieve a certain way, but I don't think it's fair for me to expect people to console my grieving in a certain way.
That's right. Yeah.
And I've chosen to believe that those people must have just been going through something or don't know how to express it. That it's like, that it's not that they're just an awful person or I mean, maybe that could be a thing, right? It could be a selfish person.
Could be.
It really could be. But that most likely someone just doesn't know how.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And so I've had to make the decision to believe that that's the case, that someone just doesn't know how.
And I think our culture, especially in America, I think in other countries, some other countries, they have better rituals and routines, I guess, around death. But in our culture in America, we seem to be a very individualistic mentality. And so we don't do a lot of talking about death. We don't do a lot of remembering about death. And so we really are not exposed to enough of the conversation to know what to do. You know, when we're close to somebody who's grieving and we're just like, I don't know what to do right now. You know, so I think that we're getting better. And I think there are enough voices out there now that are saying, hey, this is what you should be doing when someone's grieving. But I love that you said we cannot put our expectations on them. So like, I can't get mad at them that they didn't call or didn't text. And you know, it happens. And a lot of stories I've heard and people I've talked to, I would say everybody has that situation where they expected someone to respond or do or say something and they just didn't. And it was hurtful. But giving that person grace, I think that's very important. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So looking back, what do you wish, and this is still very recent for you, but what do you wish you might have told yourself during the first few weeks after your grandmother died? Like, how have your ideas about grief evolved since she died?
Well, I thought that I would just have more control over it. So my nanny was English. She was from England.
Oh, wow.
And in their culture, and she had talked about this many times, and I saw her walk through grief many times. And there would be, I forget what it was called, but there would be a season of grief where, like, specifically women who lost their husbands would just wear black for a period of time.
Right.
And then once that period of time was over, they would start wearing color again. And it's as if they just now, like, they're better.
Oh.
And so in my mind, I even contemplated, I was like, okay, I'm just going to wear black for a period of time. And that's going to be my period of grieving. And then on this date, I'm going to stop wearing black and then I'm just going to be fine.
Yeah.
I didn't do that at all. I decided really quickly that I couldn't commit to just black for that long. But
right.
I also just learned that I wouldn't be able to just turn it off and on in the way that I hoped that I would.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I had to give myself grace. And I'm grateful that I recognized it really early on. I mean, in the very beginning days where I would feel really happy, you know, it would be the day after she died and I'm like laughing and stuff. And I'm like, what is my problem? Like, did I not love her? Do I not care? Was I not close? You know?
Yeah.
And then a period where I would be really sad and everybody else would be happy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get it together. So I just decided very early on just to let myself feel how I'm going to feel.
Yeah. No matter where it
and to let everybody else feel how they're going to feel. I'm not going to dictate to my dad or my uncles or my siblings or my cousins or whatever, like how they should be feeling.
Yeah. Right.
And so that was the thing. That was the most shocking thing, is that I just thought that I would have more control over it.
And you didn't.
But I like nipped that with myself pretty early on.
Yeah. So what do you think is the best way family and friends can support each other when maybe the grief isn't the way they expected it to be, or maybe they're getting hard on themselves, or maybe they're frustrated with someone else for not they're, you know, grieving in a typical way? How do you think they can support someone?
Well, I think it's equally us as the people grieving have to have more grace, right? Like, no two people are going to grieve exactly the same. So if I tell you that something would have been supportive to me, someone else who grieves totally differently maybe would have been annoyed by that gesture.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, especially if you're close to someone, recognizing if they are behaving a little differently, are feeling a little off, giving them grace through that, letting them laugh and share the memories and all of that when they are, letting them cry when they are, and just not placing the expectations of, you should be, I'm glad it was only your nanny, right. Or at least just don't ever start anything with at least.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
That's the only thing that I think would be good across the board. As everyone grieves differently, expresses emotion differently. Yes. Don't start any of the conversations with at least.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's
yes. If it's starting that way, that's a wrong direction.
But I really think even more than I'm praying for you or anything like that. Like, I think anytime that I hear someone acknowledge my nanny, that means more than anything. Because there are times when I don't want to be asked how I'm doing. Like, I'm in a zone where it's taken me a while to get to that zone. So don't throw me out of it by wanting me to have this deep feeling right now when I'm just like, trying to do my job or work out or whatever. But just to make comments about her that let me know that you see that in her, or that you see a trait in her in me. Those things are very meaningful and easier, I think, to process at any given moment than forcing me to get into a deep feeling when I'm not in that place.
Yep. No, that's good to know. Yeah. And that's, I think being aware of others is very important. I think a lot of us aren't. We think a lot about our own feelings and our own processes, but I guess watching that person and saying, is now a good time for me to say this? And being aware of the circumstances and situations.
Yeah.
So, well, I did want to ask you before we close today, I did want to ask you about your podcast. Can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast and what you do there?
Yeah. So my podcast is really for all women, and we talk about all the things from health, wellness, fitness, relationships, marriage, parenting, literally all the conversations that us as women have with each other or wish that we could have with each other. But every conversation is approached with a biblical perspective. And so we go there on all the things.
Nice.
We talk about the hard things, and there's no masks there. Everything is raw and also fun too. So we'll have some deep conversations, but also have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's just been such a blessing in my life, and the community around the podcast has been such a blessing too.
That's awesome. So I'm so excited. If you are watching or listening, go ahead to the show notes, and her link for her podcast will be right down there. Go and check it out. She's got some wonderful content on there. I've already listened to several episodes, and they've already blessed my heart. So I'm very excited about your podcast and what you do there, and your biblical approach to, like you said, all the things. So if you want to hear a discussion about anything, it's probably on her podcast. So
it's probably we have had all the discussions, but you know what? I think we need to.
I agree.
I really think we need to. And if there's a conversation that's hard, guess what? The world is having it.
Yeah, it's true.
And
it's true.
So as Christian women, we also need to be having it.
That's right.
And there are a lot of times that I'll get messages that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you talked about that, but I'm so glad that you talked about that because it's been a struggle for me.
Yes.
And it's we need to talk about these things.
That's right.
And honestly, as Christian women, we're going to look for the content somewhere. We're going to look for somewhere to give us a little direction or guidance. And so why would I not, as a Christian woman, be that space for other Christian women?
I'm so excited about the work that you're doing with that. And like I said, your information will be in our show notes, so go ahead and check it out there. Brandi, I'm so glad you joined us today for this episode and poured out your heart about what grief looked like for you and how God showed up for you. Just thank you so much for being part of our show today.
Thank you for having me. Bye.